Wonderful. Well, welcome back everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Shael and I am the Senior Research and Communications Officer at the Office of iGEM, and I will be your MC for this afternoon session. It is also my first time MCing, so please love me and forgive me. Thank you. Thank you. So we begin the final session with insights from a collaboration on community preparedness. Please welcome Chris Barnes from City of Moreton Bay and Renee Barnes from University of the Sunshine Coast. They are not related, but they will be presenting together. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much everybody for receiving the presentation today. A really good opportunity for us to highlight some of the great work which has been done with UniSC and City of Moreton Bay. It's not just the emergency management and public safety area which I work within, but our community engagement team has been a key driver in some of this. So last session, I thought I'd start with a bit of a joke. Why did the emergency manager bring a ladder to the meeting? Because they heard the discussion was going to be on a higher level of preparedness. Anyway.
I think he deserves more.
Yeah.
Come on, it's the last session of the day.
The big green button. Right, so I'm going to talk about the introduction in the background. We don't really need to focus on the slides. So the purpose of the research was to examine how Moreton Bay residents seek, process and act on information during natural disasters. The outcomes of the research, I think, are able to be transferred to any local government area or organisation which deals with messaging the community. We used a mix of methods. So Renee and the team did a systematic literature review. We also benefit from an increasing and an increasingly deep pool of data from our Moreton SAYS surveys, which are run by our community engagement team. So we had the ability to do quantitative survey analysis of the 2021 and 2024 survey data, and then Renee was then able to overlay that with qualitative analysis from focus groups with members of the community. So 3 stages: desktop review, survey analysis, and then focus groups, all resulted in a really good data set. Broadly, what we saw in terms of key findings was that there's a general improvement in readiness post the 2022 floods, which is a real good validation of a lot of the work we'd done in our community engagement area and our disaster preparedness areas in terms of the effort they put into communicating with the community and supporting education. But there are still some major gaps remaining, especially in evacuation planning and understanding of infrastructure resilience. There was a 15% increase in self-reported readiness in 2022. However, 40% of residents still, of those surveyed, still lacked a formal evacuation plan. And this really highlighted the gaps in emergency access to emergency information, and also stressed the need for a data-driven, proactive resilience strategy to be developed. In terms of the analysis of our survey research, the hazard context in which the research was taken was looking at the risk from tropical cyclones, floods, severe storm, bushfires, heat waves, and coastal erosion. We did see a shift in the participation between genders, with female participation rising to 60.5% of the survey participants, whereas male participation was dropping between the 2 surveys in 21 and 24, down to 35.6%. Long-term residents increased their participation, with 62% of participants living in the area for more than 10 years. That was up from 51% in the 2021 survey. However, one of the challenges we did identify was that high long-term residency was linked to some extent with an element of complacency. Again, highlighting the need to focus on targeted engagement with those particular groups. In terms of the penetration of the surveys, the 2024 sample surveyed just over 3,700 residents, and that was up from 2021 when we surveyed 2,200 residents. And we have a targeted population of 510,000 within the region, which I'm told it's a statistically significant survey participation rate. So it seems like a low number, but I'm pretty happy with that, and we've certainly gained some interesting insights. Now, I'll hand over to Renee and she can continue freestyling.
Yes. Maybe there might be a way that we can share slides after, because I think being thrown a lot of figures without being able to see them, it is quite difficult to digest. So the way the program worked is we did analyse that survey data first, and look, the City of Moreton is brilliant in terms of engaging their community and having that data, and then allowing us to be able to see that longitudinal sort of idea of how that preparedness and how that resilience was tracking within the region. We then did some more regression analysis with the statistics so that we could link some of these things with confidence and with actual outcomes, because we really wanted to link this with things that the council can do around increasing resilience and increasing preparedness. And one of those particularly is around information, which is where I come in. I'm a communication scholar. I'm representing a team of researchers from the university here today. But we wanted to look at how people are finding information, what information they trust and is credible, and how we can improve that communication really to see changes within resilience and preparedness. I'm trying to fill time because this is going to sound terrible if I just keep reading stats to you, but essentially when we were drilling down into the survey data more so that we could make these links with information, it makes sense, but residents that had both a kit and a plan, that was the strongest predictor of confidence. Of course, they've got two things in place, but there was correlations with that with people who had been in the region for a longer period of time. So those who'd been in the region were more likely to have those items. Ooh, slides. And now this will be way better. Okay, here we go. Stats that you can look at. That 78% optimal readiness, what we were calling it, that was up from 75% in 2021. But confidence drops, obviously, if you've only got one of those. So if you've only got a kit or you've only got a plan, then that will drop down. So we were kind of labelling that as partial preparedness. And then, of course, you can have the lowest confidence of those with neither a kit nor a plan. Unfortunately, though, there was a little kind of blip, little kind of outlier segment that sat in that data. And there was a significant percentage that reported a very high confidence about being prepared for particular natural hazards, but had none of those things. So we really kind of identified there that there is this need for more scenario-based education to address this unrealistic confidence. There's a highlight there, and that really came out more so in the focus groups. So continuing along here, so this low information seeking and uneven confidence. So high confidence, they're not seeking the information. So it's more limiting there, where we can have these interventions to be able to ensure that people are properly preparing, are properly resilient. So you can see there only 27% checking those hazard maps. Cyclone confidence was the lowest. Now, remembering this cyclone data was pre-Alfred. We have our focus groups coming soon. We had one prior to Alfred and two post-Alfred, so you start to see a little bit of a difference there. At the time, we were kind of explaining that there was less immediate or contemporary experience with that within the region. And so we had a number of kind of recommendations, I guess, around that. Promoting both the kit and the plan as essentials. Tailoring training by disaster type. So people were expressing more confidence in other things like bushfires and floods, whereas if we could target around specific hazard types, and regional gaps and local workshops, those sorts of things around postcodes where we were seeing those lower confidence levels. All right, a bit thrown without the slides, but I'm getting back on track. Okay, so moving on to our focus groups now. So like I mentioned, we had... Oh!
Stop using Teams. Please continue.
Okay. Thrown completely by that. So what we can see again, and it's really highlighting some of the things that came through in the survey, that the focus groups were showing that confidence can mislead. And the other clear point was that residents wanted clear and local, really specific to the region within the city of Moreton Bay, and actionable messages. So you can see here we've kind of grouped our findings from the focus groups there thematically. So that high confidence often masked real risk or risky behaviours. An example of that was someone within a focus group who was incredibly confident. She was very prepared no matter what would happen. This was pre-Alfred, but then proceeded to tell us a story about driving through floodwaters. So there was a real disconnect between those things. We saw lots of incidents of that within the focus group. And therefore, we kind of left that going, this measurement that had been used previously around confidence as a link with resilience and preparedness isn't actually accurate, because that confidence doesn't actually lead to that preparedness action. Another really clear thing that came out of the focus groups and really does link to this information-seeking behaviour was around the messaging. So lots of incidents of centralised messages going across the region that weren't applicable to people in particular areas. So let's say someone living on the coastline, some sort of alerts or messaging around preparedness actions that need to be taken for residents on the coastline that was still being delivered to residents in the hinterland. So that was developing a lack of trust and credibility in the messaging, and therefore they were switching off from all messaging because they felt that wasn't relevant for them. So they're really wanting those suburb-specific actionable warnings as well. Lots of discussion, particularly post-Alfred, when people were reflecting specifically on the messaging that they had during that time. There were lots of things that they found really frustrating, just be prepared sort of messages without concrete actionable steps they felt like weren't something that they could follow through, or steps that were impossible around sandbagging when everyone knew that sandbags were impossible to come by. Other things that were around using internet or checking the bomb website, and it was like, well, that's great, but we can't do that here at the moment. So lots of things around making those messages more actionable and more accurate for people individually. And I guess so bringing that together with the surveys and looking at what that richer data that we got from the focus groups, where we kind of brought it down to those key factors around the specific messages and the confidence being an issue. Past experience really came out as breeding a bit of complacency. So a lot of people are like, I've lived through this, I've done this all before, I don't need to do any of these things. So it's really giving us, I think, some very clear touch points of how we tailor communication and information in this space. Is this me? No, this is you. Does Chris get the giggles as well, or just me? That's very, very...
I got the laughs at the start. Okay, so clearly what we wanted from the research was some actionable recommendations which we could then take forward at the local government level, and I think these are things which other stakeholders in this community will be able to use as well. So we're really going to start addressing how we assess confidence metrics. We're going to look at how we can indicate confidence and capture both that concern and the readiness within the communities, and start looking at how we identify behavioural measures and scenario-based assessments to capture actual preparedness in communities. We do want to enhance message clarity. We want to leverage social media and networks. That's all very challenging in a local government where messaging is very tightly controlled by single departments, which we need to feed through, but they're ongoing discussions internally. And then also the preparation for digital failure. It is a consistent message we hear now. Yes, we all rely upon the internet and it's great, provides a very deep level of information when it works, but we need to prepare for that failure. And these lessons can also be seen demonstrated from experiences like we've seen down in City of Gold Coast post the 2023 Christmas storms, where the power failures resulted in basically a whole-scale failure of messaging penetrating those communities, so they had to resort to low-tech options. So the future directions for us are to write concrete, actionable messages, refine our messaging strategies through our different mechanisms within the City of Moreton Bay. We're going to be developing a multi-indicator preparedness index so that we're just moving beyond confidence as a sole measure. We're going to include risk awareness, resilience under stress, and information-seeking skills. And then using that index to track and hopefully improve community readiness. And then we're also working with our comms team to integrate social media with other official channels. So we want to be able to demonstrate risks and amplify risk visually. And we want to enable easy sharing to boost that message spread. And, that really feeds in really well to the earlier discussions having regarding TikTok and other social media channels. So that is basically it. I hope you find some of this useful, and happy to take any questions. No more jokes.
Thank you, Chris and Renee. Any questions from the room? Yes, one at the back.
Thank you. That was a great presentation from the Barneses. I just have a question about particular interest in the communication with vulnerable communities. And, if there's any early thoughts around what that might look like. We all know the lists are a bit of a problem there and change every day.
So it's an area of weakness, if we're honest, the ability for us to get messaging penetrating down to all sections of the community simultaneously or equitably. We do engage with disability groups and networks within City of Moreton Bay, and we're really reliant upon those community champions as well. And we also see that mirrored in like other vulnerable communities through not just physical disabilities, but then also things like cultural and linguistically diverse communities as well. So reliant upon community champions, leadership to really take on the messaging and then transmit that through their own networks at this stage.
I skipped over that section there, but that also linked in with the very individualised and clearer action steps. So steps that for those particular groups, they didn't want the generic again. They wanted something that was very targeted towards that group. So it's kind of in the mix there of how do we individualise but also reach at a great rate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.